I have seen the social media of Ethiopia go awash with, views that suggest otherwise. He's traded, that, for the patriotism and solidarity to Africa.
Why the need of evacuation when there is no real danger?
Well, I think that we must stop this idea of creating a false narrative. If you are president, you must first of all put your people as first.
The Prime Minister of Ethiopia has also have done the same, who has been prisoners in other countries. He has been bringing, ever since he came to power, Ethiopians from out, but not people who have been in their comfort working as diplomats, or whose life was not endangered. What is also his evidence of the imminent risk of danger in a city where millions seems be just doing business as usual. The Zambian media houses report about Ethiopia. Where do they get their sources at all?
Ethiopia is one cradle of history, and we should have a television station that captures our affairs and our needs.
We have seen that Zambians whose lives were really endangered and blatant killing, for example, if we take in South Africa due to xenophobia.
Can't marry the subject of a civil war happening, in Ethiopia, with the issue of Pan Africanism.
Tell you how it is related.
Let's be fair on President Hakainde. Now, my fellow Pan Africanists, we must put our emotions where it matters. Brothers and sisters in Ethiopia, don't be, introduced to start fighting another psychological war and thinking that maybe Zambians are against you.
Connect Africa.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Welcome to Connect Africa. Today, we are going to discuss or talk about the evacuation of the Zambian citizens from the capital of Ethiopia, Addis Abeba, which happened a day before on the 9th of November, and where the social media is talking about it. So in order to discuss that, we have here with us Mr. Sikwindi Situla from Zambia. He is the president of the organization State 55 Africa. He's a Pan Africanist, and he has worked before actually with the current president of Zambia, Hakainde Hichilema. Welcome, Sikwindi Situla. Please tell us about yourself briefly.
Thank you very much. Yeah, my name's Sikwindi Situla, indeed, as captured. I am privileged to be president or leader of State 55. State 55 is Africa's premier people's movement, pressing for the state of Africa. And so we have chapters scattered across the continent, and we've got other efforts building up chapters beyond the shores of Africa. Yes, I happen to have been, a very active politician in Zambia before, and was once privileged to work with President Hichilema. And by no means am I speaking, nonetheless, for the government of Zambia, and by no means am I speaking for the president, himself. It's basically my role to speak to these matters from the point of view of being a Pan-Africanist and the leader of State 55. So I'm not representing anybody except the peoples of Africa through the organization called State 55.
Okay, tell us, what is the current relationship that the US has currently with Zambia that it does not have with other African countries?
I don't see any relationship that Zambia has that is unique and special beyond what the US has tried to do in many other African countries. Perhaps there are even more special relations that you see, which are even more defined in other areas, especially hotspot areas, or areas considered hotspot areas in the north of Africa. But, that does not that does not in any way underscore the fact that I think the independence of Africa is still in question even up as we speak today. And that does not even underscore the fact that we ourselves as the African people have primarily been the ones that have to do an introspection to, examine the whys and wherefores of why we are stuck in the same place 50 years, beyond 50, 60 years after Africa's independence. I think we have a responsibility to ourselves to press for the state of Africa. And that is not to say that there's anybody outside, the Africa that would be willing and will be a supporter of that idea. We know that Pan Africanism is the worst enemy to those that, feed from African resources. We know that. But we should also be careful not to, over apportion responsibility because we have a role to play ourselves. The African leaders have to start acting correctly. And African leaders must be responsible when it comes to their people and when it comes to building the agenda of African unity. The agenda of African unity does not fall in place when you catch fire. No, I always say it is too late to dig a well when you're thirsty. We have to learn to prepare for a better state of Africa. And the only way we can have a better state of Africa is all of us agreeing that we need one state of Africa which is popularly elected. We need to get to that position sooner than later.
Last week, following, which happens to be a fake news by CNN and the talk by the UN also warning people that Addis Abeba, actually the capital of Ethiopia and the capital of Africa, is in danger of security. Zambian, as we said in the introduction, president has evacuated its citizens. Why has Zambia evacuated its citizens when other African countries don't seem to be doing the same? What is also, his evidence of the imminent risk or danger in a city where millions seems be just doing business as usual?
I think that first of all, like I said before, I'm not speaking, I'm going to comment on my own behalf. So I'm not examining this I'm not basically speaking on behalf of any government or any person. I want to reiterate that. So my viewpoint is that, when you are a head of state, you are privileged to see more information that otherwise can be suggested by the public. So the decision that he made was purely in the interest of Zambia, because if you notice, there's a lot that has changed since he took over, power in Zambia. He wants a true and fundamental, character of a democratic society and a government that is more responsive to its people than otherwise. He has drawn us, into this great understanding to believe that every action that he does is interested by what would profit Zambia more than what would profit any other person, out there. I have seen the social media of Ethiopia go awash with, views that suggest otherwise. He's traded, that, for the patriotism and solidarity to Africa. I don't think that's the case. I think we're purely misunderstanding and comparing apples and pears and apples. You're dealing with a different situation here. He, based on the best information that he has, however he gets that information, I can't say because only him can. But from where I see it, if I'm president of Ethiopia today, and I see that you, Mahlet, is in imminent danger in Netherlands, I will offer you the opportunity to come back home. And that's what a caring government does, and that's what he did. So, and he did not force anybody to come out of there. Now, the narratives of what we discuss and the discourse that ensue from it does not in any way suggest that, we shouldn't listen to those that, are sort of more invested in the public opinion. So it is us as Africans. If Mr. Hichilema's decision is flawed insofar as the world, is fed with wrong information from, any media whatsoever, I think we must be ourselves to blame. Ethiopia is one cradle of history, and we should have a television station that captures our affairs and our needs, the whole world. So why don't we have? Who stops us? Nobody stops us. We, the Africans, stop ourselves. We must take responsibility so that we are not feeding on CNN and BBC, because we'll have our own strong media in Africa that gives us the right information. But you can't also have a strong media in Africa that feeds propaganda for people to be, invested in wrongdoing and, pitting, basically, feeding on the people, taxpayers' money to keep themselves in shape at the expense of the majority, Africans. The new Africa is coming, I can tell you that. And the new Africa means that we, the people, are going to declare the state of Africa at one point. We have the responsibility to do that because we are just tired and sick. You can't be telling us we want, African unity. It's taken us 60 years. We can't even raise one, chorus. We can't sing one national anthem. We can't do basic things like making sure that all our flags, we are substituted or even just put next to the African Union flag. There is nothing happening there. You can't continue drinking coffee and implying that, there's unity which is being, put there. We have got to see real unity. And we, the strong Pan-Africanists who believe that there is a difference between being an Africanist and being a Pan-Africanist, will tell you that it is important that we have the state of Africa. That's when we can start seeing the fruits of what it takes to be one strong, position. Now, these views might not be shared with the president of Zambia or the president of Ethiopia or Eritrea or anybody. These are views from State 55, and I'm representing the views of the peoples of Africa. The peoples of Africa, yeah. The peoples of Africa.
No, we understand, but let me just let me raise two questions based on what you said. In terms of presidents caring for their people, yes, the action is commendable, but the question comes, why the need of evacuation when there is no real danger and when the rest of diplomats, I'm not talking about the US and the Western countries diplomats, but the rest of African diplomats who are working as expats in the UN, in African Union, in embassies, are working and having business as usual. Why that is the real question. Otherwise, of course, we are not trying to lessen the president's action. And of course, as the Prime Minister of Ethiopia has also done the same, who has been prisoners in other countries. He has been bringing, ever since he came to power, Ethiopians from out, but not people who have been in their comfort working as diplomats or, whose life was not endangered. So having said that, let me ask, to the contrary, actually, we have seen that Zambians whose lives were really endangered and blatant killing. For example, if we take in South Africa due to xenophobia, and then in the pandemic in COVID-19, we have also seen Zambians with the rest of their African brothers and sisters who are chased out of their shelter or home and sent to streets. But this one, when such danger is not happening, but still there is evacuation. So if you can just comment on that. And also speaking of media, actually, if the Zambian media houses report about Ethiopia, where do they get their sources at all?
Yeah, so let me start with the most important part, so that in case we get, disruption, we don't suffer, the consequences of not having said it. The truth of the matter is this: the president of Zambia is a new president. So when xenophobia was happening, for instance, in South Africa, he was not the president. Yeah. Even when, at the advent of COVID, he was not the president. So the president who's been dislodged from power must answer that question, and not the one who's here. So it's not a standard. What he did is not a standard practice per se that is prescribed in the manual of being president. No, it's an initiative a president takes based on his passion and based on what works for him. So at the end of the day, what we are discussing here is the very fact that if you are president, you must first of all put your people as first. And the issue of why him alone, among many, I think we don't decline. None of you people have said there is no war in Ethiopia. We all agree that there is war in Ethiopia.
Yes.
So wherever there is war, you know that you start preparing for a possible evacuation because there is war. Yeah, so we can't marry the subject of a civil war happening, in Ethiopia with the issue of Pan Africanism, unless we can dissect the bits and pieces, the nitty-gritties step by step, because every war has a reason and it has belligerents. So as we stand, the role that I see a president of Zambia playing is the role of one, dealing with the AU, speaking through the AU to end the conflict. Secondly, taking a personal effort to try and mediate. Now, a president can't mediate and be a credible mediator in a conflict like that one unless he is credible. And credibility means that he doesn't take sides. It means that he's not supposed to be pitted. He's not supposed to pit one brother, against the other. He's not supposed to do that. So I think let's be fair on President Hakainde. His activities speak volumes. They augment, or they introduce a new lease of life in African leadership. I think that we will all be proud of him in the due course, but we shouldn't name call him, and we shouldn't marry the approval of a facility on climate change, a funding facility to pilot activities, climate change activities in Zambia as well as in Ghana, to the decision that he made. I think that we will be stooping too low ourselves if we did that, because we will be suggesting a simplistic approach, that there was a carrot dangled before the president to say, we evacuate your people and then we will give you this facility. I think that is very wrong. It's unfortunate. It must come to an end forthwith, because it is not true. It is actually not true. It can't be true.
That brings to me actually to pose the next question. Yes, like as you tried to mention in the last part, we do understand and we have read that Zambia has got a donation or a fund from the United Nations or USAID, I think, to be specific, because it's read from the Samantha Power's Twitter handle. So that being happened, it's a few weeks difference, and then also separately, UN is now known for its reputation in helping neo-colonial interests, and also it lacks transparency. Can we say it's a pure coincidence?
I don't even see any coincidence. So it can't be impure or pure coincidence. I don't see any coincidence, because I can't relate the two. I purely don't relate the two. Here is a point of interest. What is the causation of the war that is going on right now in Ethiopia? And is there, in fact, a war going on right now in Ethiopia? So I asked my Ethiopian friends, is that war got to do with a 1 month, period or 2 months period that the president of Zambia has been in power?
I tell you how it is related. In fact, right now, many Africans and Pan-Africans are claiming and witnessing the war has evolved to something else. It's not anymore between certain rebels and as the Ethiopian government as it started to be. It has evolved to be those who are against a unified Ethiopia and using the rebels as a tool to dismantle the unity of Ethiopia. So many actually political analysts have affirmed that Ethiopia as an African nation is being attacked through a hybrid warfare by the US and other powerful players. Do you think the Zambian government has given that due consideration? And don't you think such a hasty decision, because this might be perceived as a participation to the warfare against a sisterly African country like Ethiopia?
Well, I think that we must stop this idea of creating a false narrative by wanting to sensationalize, things that are not sensational at all. Why do we want to create an issue that pits Ethiopia against the Zambian people, the Ethiopian people against the Zambian people, where there is not supposed to be one? The truth of the matter is this: Zambia has not participated in that conflict in any way whatsoever. The president is, as far as his statement, his public statement goes, which I followed, wishes for peace to return in Ethiopia. He does not only wish for the peace to retain and reign in Ethiopia, he also wishes for peace to retain and reign in the southern Cameroons. I'm sure he wishes all these, areas. We all wish for that. Now, my fellow Pan-Africanists, we must put our emotions where it matters. There are people who are talking about the conflict relating to the dam that was being constructed on the Nile River, or that is being constructed on the Nile River. There are people who are talking about the rebels being those that were defeated in government, who are trying to topple according to what they are saying. And I'm talking about these views right from inside Ethiopia, from among my brothers and sisters in Ethiopia. That it is those that want to dislodge or overthrow, if you like, an elected government in Ethiopia. Now, those are issues that President Hichilema found already in motion. They were already there. So his decision is only to safeguard the lives. Do you know how traumatizing to be caught up in a war you don't even understand, whose cause you don't even understand? It can be traumatizing. And I think that all presidents in Africa must start behaving like that. Behaving in a way that if your people, or the way of putting your people first indeed, so that you don't get whips on the streets because people are raising opinion against you. You don't want that. You want a stronger engagement. So if there's a section of your society which is not unhappy, or which is unhappy rather, sorry, and is by and large displeased by a certain action, and they want to demonstrate, to bring that to register that to you, they must be allowed to do that. Just a few days ago here in Zambia, the university students who in a long history have, have been fighting, running battles with the police over small statements. This time around, they took to a protest. The police were protecting them and advised them accordingly. And it was all peaceful. We need to mature. Africa needs to mature. We need to build our own democracy, not the Western democracy, our own democracy, not democracy that suggests that we are tapping into the foreign policy of the United States. No. We are talking about having democracy that is in consonance with everything that we do and everything that we are. The building of the state of Africa is one thing that every Pan-Africanist must practically do, not just say and seek public attention over it. We have got to practically take practical steps to ensure that the state of Africa is established, is inaugurated, and works for the good of all. That is not something that you just do because something is happening in Zambia and you go on the media and start condemning things we have not so much information about. So as State 55, we are in a hurry to see a united state of Africa. We are in a hurry and can't wait any longer. to see to it that there is no war on any piece of land in Africa, Ethiopia included. But we can't marry that to the act that the president did of evacuating Zambian citizens from Ethiopia. I think we are being pre-judgmental and too judgmental. You know, he has every right to protect the lives of those citizens. Now, does that bespeak that he supports the rebels because the rebels fed on this piece of thread or this thread of information? You know, that suggests that, you know, the Zambian government has evacuated its citizens. Now, anybody who has been in politics, in government, and has even read or understood war, the propaganda of war cannot be controlled by the person who's a non-actor and non-factor to it. So the narrative that, you know, therefore that is a betrayal has no merit and must be dismissed, you know, forthwith.
It might not be related in this conflict directly, but when your action indirectly contributes to the worsening of the matter, don't you think, you know, let me say this, right now, many Africans and Pan-Africans are claiming and witnessing that Ethiopia's war, actually, it's Ethiopia's current war, is an African war, since it's a hybrid war by the US and its allies. Don't you think that Zambia is sabotaging, you know, the African cause that says African solution to African problems? And also, because this happened when none of the member states are doing this, what kind of, that's why I asked it in the beginning, what is really that evidence that was endangering the lives of the citizens? If you can tell us, about
I just said to you, my lovely sister, that here is one bit of information that matters to you and me. We are not privy to the yardsticks, to the measuring barometer, to the security reports that presidents get. You and I are not privy to that. So we do not know what occasioned that kind of a decision. So now let's judge the decision. Is the decision in any way furthering, you know, or should I say, you know, advancing or creating a deteriorated situation for you in Ethiopia? I don't see that. So if the Zambians, a few Zambians that were evacuated from Ethiopia remained in Ethiopia today, what would be the state of that conflict? Will it have changed? The answer is no. The conflict would have still been there. It would have continued. It didn't start on account of the Zambians being in Ethiopia. It won't end on account of the Zambians being evacuated from Ethiopia. So we need to face the truth. Let us deal with the problem as it is, as it stands. The problem is that any war on any part, you know, of Africa is regrettable, is supposed to be entertained. And because we also know that the end result of wars, apart from the destruction they leave behind, is that people still have to get to a round table and talk and find an amicable solution. So why not start with finding an amicable solution in the first place? And I followed this conflict. It is important for leaders to learn to speak to each other and find and resolve their problems without subjecting people, citizens, young children, women to such atrocities. It's important that the war in Ethiopia gets to an end. It gets resolved, because for all of us, we look at Ethiopia as the hallmark of the African unity, as the home of our ancestors. We look at it that way. Because we look at it that way, it is our responsibility to do everything that we can do in our sides to make sure that Ethiopia returns to peace and Ethiopia is strong again. But how do you do that? It is not by, you know, lashing out at the decision of one president making to secure his people, because it is utterly inconsequential.
Let me jump in. Was this consulted? If you happen to know, I know that you are answering on behalf of yourself and your organization, perhaps.
Absolutely.
Was this
Absolutely.
consulted with the African Union or any other African member states? The action of President Hichilema?
It cannot be a matter that you can table with African Union. Far from it. And it shouldn't be. It would be trivial to do that. You can't table that what needs to be called on the table right now, what needs to be put on the table of the African Union today, is the African Union having an emergency meeting to deal with the conflict and humanitarian, state that may follow in, or has already, in fact, happened, in areas where the fighting has been, hard, or is it fully blown? So again, we have to choose our words very carefully, because when people are in a war situation, sometimes everything becomes emotive. But the rationality stays with us, that the African leaders collectively needs to resolve the conflict that is boiling in Ethiopia and all other conflicts that envelop Africa, including the Southern Cameroon's conflict and any other. I mean, we have a problem of so many things happening, including terrorism, in this part of the world. So those things have to be dealt with, because they injure our reputation, but more than that, they are displacing thousands of people, and they are, killing innocent, children, women, and so on and so forth. So State 55 is not in support of the fermentation and upholding of wars. Now, there's one thing that I have not said, which I must register categorically. You see, there is no way a sensible, African would, pander to an idea of foreign invasion. For instance, State 55 opposes the idea of having AFRICOM in Africa, that whole US thing, command, military command in Africa. I think that Africa needs to be left alone. And when I say left alone, Africa needs to be left alone from the point of view of, don't even support an uprising of one group against the other. Let Africa heal. Let Africa refine her soul, so that we can define where we want and what we want and how we are going to live our lives. We still have a problem of COVID. And in this COVID arrangement, we have not even developed a vaccine for ourselves. These are matters that preoccupy our minds, and they are of interest to every African. We want to see a stage where Africa will go in the world, contributing to global justice and contributing to peace and security in the world as a third force in the global, geopolitics. We need to get to that position. Now, that means that even as we wish that we get to that state, the reality is that the 1884 Berlin Conference that partitioned Africa is in full gear as we speak, and it needs to be dismantled. We also know that most of these wars, and you are right when you state that we know that most of these wars have been fueled by imperialists. We know that. And we must be courageous to speak truth to power and say, it's time we let Africa heal from these wars. It's time we let Africa rebuild herself again. So the Zambian president was absolutely right to evacuate his people, but he shouldn't end there. He must come back to Ethiopia, to the Ethiopian people, and hear your cries and say, do what is in his power to persuade warring parties to put down those guns. And Ethiopia is a strong economy. It has grown. We all admire it. We do not want to see a free-falling Ethiopia. But there are many other things that we can talk about as we go on. But I think what matters is that we attend ourselves, to those things that will augment trust, will augment peace, will augment respect, will augment brotherhood and true unity among the African people, as well as among the African governments, so that we can see the day in our lifetime when we will have all these presidents in Africa agreeing that one of them will be our leader, and that we, the people, will be the ones to decide which one of those should be our leader at that moment and create the state, of Africa. So you can't be a Pan-Africanist if you call yourself a Pan-Africanist and you don't do anything about it. Let's do something. Pan-Africanism is about doing something. It's not about just sitting and wishing and thinking, you know, Pan-Africanism will come. What have you done to build a stronger and united Africa?
Well, speaking of Pan-Africanism, I wish we would see that the Zambian government that would not follow or would not fall to the trap of the fake CNN news that is deliberately targeting citizens and foreigners to create a panic amongst them and to depict it as a failed state, you know, talking about the rebels are in less than 100 kilometers around the capital, and which they did, they evacuate their people, but none of the Africans have done that. So it kind of took us by surprise when the Zambian government did it. I wish we could see that, no, there's nothing in the town. We are here. It's business as usual. And we are here in solidarity with our African brothers and sisters. The fact of the matter is nothing is happening. And also, for me, I find it contradictory. The African Union has taken the matter, supposedly, saying that African solution to African problems, and which Zambia is a member state, and which supports that. But however, you are now unilaterally stepping out and saying, no, like it's in danger, I have to take, it kind of sends a contradictory message. But I will give you this chance. This will be our last question, and it will give you that opportunity to send your message to Ethiopian people. Now, many residents in Addis Abeba and their families in the diaspora believe that, you know, they have been purposefully targeted psychologically, and also when the decision by President Hichilema is added to evacuate its citizens, which kind of gave a misleading impression that Addis Ababa is a war zone. What do you say to them?
Yeah, so misleading impression, indeed. I think an impression, you have no control about an impression. So an act happens and people are left to judge by themselves. But and addressing my brothers and sisters in Ethiopia, listen to me very carefully. The president did not make, I don't think the president made that, you know, decision on the basis of suggesting that Ethiopia has fallen, that Addis Ababa has fallen. No. He was not doing that. I think the reports of war are even on your television. The reports of war are even in your newspapers. Statements are being made by your leaders around this war. We follow those things. And when we do follow those things, they tell a story. So we are reacting to something that we have seen and we have heard. But for the president, and look, I'm not speaking on behalf of the president, I'm commenting on it. My comment is as simple as this. Brothers and sisters in Ethiopia, don't be, you know, introduced to start fighting another psychological war and thinking that maybe Zambians are against you. All the people in Ethiopia, we have not taken sides. I don't think there's a Zambian statement that has been made public, taking sides, whether to stand with this side of the conflict or that side of the conflict. There's none of that sort, as far as I can, you know, recall. I've not seen anything to suggest that the Zambian government is pitting this brother against the next. It's not like that. So the conflict that is in Ethiopia, which you acknowledge even right now, there's no one who's declining, you know, declining, you know, the fact that, you know, there is war in Ethiopia. There's no one who's saying no to that fact. So the very fact that we acknowledge that there is war in Ethiopia is the very start-off point with which we must understand the decision the president made. But the impression it creates, yes, it has created an impression, as we can hear from your side, but that impression is wrong. It's not what the president intended. I don't think that's what the president intended to do. I'm sure they will speak for themselves in due course, but I don't see that that is the intention the president wanted to achieve. He simply cares for his people, and he wanted to bring his people home and then engage everybody else in the resolution of the problem. If the rebel forces have used that to their advantage, that is not because President Hichilema handed, that, act to them, willingly. No, he didn't even do that intentionally. I don't think he did that. But, as I say, I will not do much of the comment because these are matters of national security. These are matters of the government speaking. I am representing the people of Africa, and I'm saying, and I'm challenging to everybody who believes is a Pan-Africanist and believes in Pan-Africanism, that Pan-Africanism is about building a peaceful, The bottom line is that we mustn't fall prey to propaganda. We mustn't fall to propaganda. The truth of the matter is there is a way by which we can attend to the conflict other than cry about the evacuation of a few people from Ethiopia. The whole lot of the Zambian community is happy by that decision, not because they don't like Ethiopia, not because they don't want peace in Ethiopia. They're just happy that for once they have got a president who cares for them. And I support that idea. And we want to ensure that we want to encourage that every African leader in the current says, so much that they don't subject their people to suffering. And after that level, we must also say it's time to get a government of Africa. So again, offshore, so that our dignity and respect retains to us as Africans. I mean, look at what is happening in the United States. The reasons why our African-American friends catch hell in those areas, it's not because of them in that space. It's because Africa has not been strong enough to protect them. So we need to build a strong Africa that protects them, which is why it's also very important that almost every African government in the current setup introduce the dual citizenship clause that will cover those Africans who were taken off the shores of Africa against their will. If they so wish to reconnect back to Africa, they must be allowed to become citizens in those, in every African country, because that is us. It's our people. It's our brothers and sisters. We have a responsibility to do that. So when it comes to this conflict in Ethiopia, it's regrettable, and I'm sure the government of Zambia may respond to that in one way or the other, but we are just making a comment and we blow it out of proportion as though it really is the case, and yet it's not. There's a lot of propaganda that goes around the world, and we will be falling prey to the same propaganda ourselves. Do we want to continue being beggars, going to the West with begging bowls? We don't need that, and we don't want that. And I'm sure there will be a day, if we work together, when we will be self-sufficient. And therefore, even these suggestions will not be there.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sikwindi Situla. That was him from State 55, sharing his views on the current status evacuation of Zambians from Ethiopia. Thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing your view with us and your notes.
Thank you very much. One love. We are one people. One people. We are one love. We are one people. So I thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to chat with you. We look at Ethiopians as our own brothers. We are one people. So we are not happy when you are subject to any of these differences. We are one people. Don't be dismayed. Don't be dissuaded, from engaging, and come, let's work together in one way or the other to make a better Africa. We need to do that. So there's no issue there. Hakuna, there's nothing. Hakuna matata. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Brother Sikwindi Situla. Thank you. It was good to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye.